Good evening and welcome to the Black Consciousness Festival and the eighth of our 20 conversations for 2020. Thank you for joining us on our Zoom webinar or on Facebook Live. The platform provides a global online center for the commemoration, celebration, and sharing of vital histories and stories that boost the awareness and impact of pride, power, and practice of people of African descent. The festival builds awareness around how each of us can take the necessary steps for restitution and reparation. Your conversation lead tonight is cultural theorist and lecturer at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, Dr. Marsha Pearce. Welcome and enjoy tonight's conversation.
Thank you so much, Sean, and a warm welcome to all of you tuning into this conversation. Joining me in dialogue are visual artists Awodiya, Toluwani, Samson, and Crichlow. Awodiya Toluwani Samson is a portrait artist and expressionist painter who hails from the Osun State, Nigeria. His works are privately collected in Nigeria and abroad and have been featured in a number of projects and exhibitions, most notably the 2019 Life in My City Art Foundation competition, in which he was one of the finalists. He currently works with one of the biggest art galleries in Africa, Nike Art Gallery in Lekki, Nigeria, and the Mitochondria Gallery in Texas, USA. Crichlow is a practicing studio artist from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. His paintings have been included in every major group exhibition of Trinidad and Tobago and Caribbean fine art since 1985. Some of his work is part of the National Art Collection. Crichlow has taught at every level of the education system in Trinidad and Tobago. He is also a key researcher on the history of visual arts in the Caribbean. Our conversation is entitled, A Space Where Blackness in Art Can Breathe. Now, such a title immediately invokes the ongoing discourse on the perils of existing as a Black person in a world with widespread systemic racism, in a world where it can feel like a crime to simply be breathing while Black. Reports of the recent murder of George Floyd in the US reveal he cried, "I can't breathe," as a white police officer pressed his knee into Floyd's neck. In 2014, Eric Garner uttered the same words before succumbing to a fatal asthma attack triggered by a police officer's chokehold. In the midst of this pandemic, with a virus that ironically attacks our respiratory system, amplified voices have called for the right to exist or breathe on our own. Therefore, before we get into our conversation, I thought it would be meaningful for us to make a space for some breath work as an evening ritual, some intentional breathing as a way of affirming our existence and attending to our mind and body during this time of global uncertainty and anxiety. I'm so grateful that Erica Ashton, the festival director, has agreed to lead us in this opening segment. Erica, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pearce. Good evening, all. Welcome. And I invite us all, as we get into this conversation, to just settle into our space. Just use this time to bring our awareness to our space, to what is around us. We can use this time to just connect with our body. So what is happening with your forehead? Is it relaxed? What's happening with your jaw? Your shoulders, are they up by your ears or are they relaxed? What's happening with your hands and your feet, your hips? And I invite us now to just clasp our hands, look at our hands, and gently and lovingly just beginning to do some movement with our hands. You know, in these times, we're spending so much online. We're using our hands and our wrists and our thumbs so much more. We're not paying enough attention. So just lovingly, we're just giving some attention to our hands today. And we release them and we can just stretch the fingers so we begin to feel them. Yeah, sending love and giving thanks to our hands. Lovely. So I invite us now to feel our whole body in our space. And as we settle into our space, bring your awareness to your breath. How is your breath? Is it soft? Is it raspy? Is it deep? And wherever it's at, no judgment, just being aware of your breath as you breathe in and out through your nose. And feel your breath as it moves into your nostrils. Just feel what is happening there as it moves into your throat. As it moves into your belly, just feel that gentle movement of the breath in your nostrils, in your chest, and in your belly. Breathing in and breathing out. And now the next breath, we're going to inhale for a count of 4, which I'll be doing, and we exhale for a count of 4. We'll take 3 breaths like that. A reminder to never force your breath, just go to where you can. So we inhale for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhaling again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And just allowing those 3 breaths to just settle into our being. Breathing gently, breathing slowly. Now the next breath, we inhale again for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're exhaling for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to do 2 more breaths like that. Remembering not to force the breath, going to where you can. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more breath. Inhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And just allowing the breath to settle into our body, into our being. And I invite you now to bring your hands together in front of your chest in that universal gesture of gratitude. And if it feels right for you, just gently bow your head as we give thanks for this opportunity to be present in this moment, to share this collective conscious breath, to connect with all that is. As we connect with our ancestors, those who went before us, who cleared a path for us, We connect with the elders in our space. We connect with ourselves. We connect with all those who are on this journey with us. We connect with those to come. And we give thanks for this gift of breath, that we can take this moment to pause, to just appreciate our breath, to appreciate our being. And we give thanks for the reminders that will come when we are required to stop, to breathe. We give thanks always. Thank you, Dr. Pearce. Back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you to all of you for indulging us and allowing us to begin in this way. A reminder to our viewers to submit your questions, which we will answer in our Q&A segment a little later. Ken and Awodiya, welcome. I'd like to start by focusing on the issue of representation in the art world. And my first question is for Awodiya. What, in your view, is the significance of portraiture as a representation for Blackness?
Please, can you come again? I didn't get the network.
No problem. In your work, you feature portraiture. And I'm interested to know what, in your view, is the significance of portraiture as a space of representation for Blackness?
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to say a very big thank you to the organizers of this occasion right now, of this webinar. I really want to say thank you, that it's a good thing that we've got going here, because a lot of Africans or Black Americans and Africans in diaspora, we've actually forgotten where we emanated from. So this is like a consciousness and a revitalization of the old idea of being Black. So I just wanted to use that to say thank you. And now back to the question, without making unnecessary talks. Okay, now the essence of portraiture in being African and being Black is it actually entails a lot. For me, every artist has his or her own interpretation of his or her own art, and for me, the eyes. There's this saying in Yoruba, which is a culture in Africa, Nigeria to be precise. They say Ojulorowa. The meaning of that is communication is in the face, or how can I put it? Like you get to communicate more when you see. And there's all this other saying that says, "Si ojuba yeju ki ohun ko ma ye." Sorry, I'm going way back to the roots, but I will interpret as I say this dialect. So Yoruba will say, "Ti ojuba yeju ki ohun ko ma ye." The meaning of that is, even if we cannot see each other, whatever agreement we've had in the past should never be dismissed. Just basically because you could not see me, but because you've had an agreement. So this is a very strong motivation for me to actually pick portraits as an essence of revitalization and communication to the art world as an African. And I picked Afro to be specific because Africa has an history with the Afro, because I don't know if it's HT generalization, but so far to my knowledge, Afro is particularly attributed to Africans because of our coily hair and all, which carries a lot of significance and a lot of power. So, and there's this expression on each African's each African's model that I've used that carries a lot of power, that carries a lot of communication. Like I said, that's in my culture, there is this saying that says communication lies on the face or in the eyes. So, there's this English saying that says the eyes are the windows to the soul. So I use this attributes to actually get my message home and it says a lot when you see somebody. Even I could tell a person's, I could have an idea. Don't let me say I could tell. I could have an idea of a person's mood by basically looking at their expression. So it says a lot, capturing the face of an African. You get to see you get to see the essence. You get to see the pain. You get to see the struggle. You get to see the agitation. You get to see the fear. You get to see the anticipation. You get to see the hopes. You get to see the love. You get to see the anguish. So it carries a lot of power. So I decided to settle with that and to go hand in hand with the use of Afro to drive in my point that about love, about aesthetic, about communication, about vision, about faith, and about a lot of significances and a lot of attributes that we have in the African culture, the richness in African culture. So that is why I've decided to use African faces and the beauty and the gold in our skin color to actually pass my message across as an African. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Awodiya. That's a lovely way for us to start our conversation. And I'm really interested in this idea of, you thinking about the face as this means, this vehicle for communicating ideas and emotions and expressions. And of course, that is very important when we think about representation. Really has to do with, how we make certain things visible and how certain aspects are left invisible. And when we think about Black people and the Black body and the way in which historically, Black faces and the Black body have been left out of certain visible discourses, it becomes really key to include the body. And as you say, to make sure that we show the face. And of course, to think about hair, which is a strong signifier of identity. And to think about, the inclusion of hair, it's usually one of those first indicators, as I said, in identifying someone. And it's highly contested, of course, when we think about, over the years and the way that hair has been manipulated in order to look like, the white man or the white woman and so on. So I really thank you for introducing that for us. And it's a lovely segue into my question for Ken, because you're talking about using the face as an essence. But can you work in a different way? I mean, your work is more abstract. It's not as representational or figurative as Awodiya's work. And so for you, I have a two-part question. And I know with your work, you address concerns with color and space, and you describe your paintings as spaces of possibility. What can you tell us about your technical considerations in building space with your artwork? And what is art's role in creating spaces of potential, especially in a world where there are systems designed to limit Black people? So those are my questions for you.
It's a very interesting question, right? Because it really penetrates to the heart of this question of making art and the possibilities that we are all trying to engage and to that we all wrestle with. But first, I want to thank the organizers of this event for inviting me to participate. This is a very important time in which we are to discuss concerns about art and Blackness, the ways in which we could move out of that invisibility that shrouds our activity, so we move into a space of light.
Yes.
And this month, as it brings to focus the arts and the activities, the aspirations of our people, whether they are artists or members of the audience, scholars, whichever, that we bring them to the fore. We are living through very challenging times in which opportunities have been created for us to take forward. And I think it's really very important that this event brings together my brother in Osun State in Nigeria, across the Atlantic, and for us to talk about the commonalities, the differences, the things that distinguish your own practice from mine. So with that as an introduction, I would really like to talk a little bit, yes, to respond to the question, which is really very interesting question. And I hope that I don't take up too much time talking about it. I hope that my words will be clearer in communicating this. But yes, I too, like Awodiya, think about the picture plane as a face. In the same way as you see the face and the eyes and those elements that make up the face as a way of journeying into the soul of the sitter, I see my canvases in remarkably the same way. But instead of using the eyes or features that we have become accustomed to on the face, I try to make that journey through the use of color, gesture, the ways in which they are manipulated as shapes, and the sort of progressions that we can make in the manipulation of that surface. Now, in this regard, I suppose my approach to painting borrows something from the classic jazz artists, jazz musician artists, who, for me, provided a methodology of going forward. In the same way as a jazz artist would take a chord, I want to take a color progression, play with it, analyze it, reduce it, open it up, do all of these things with it, and hope that at the end of it, it is a receptacle in which my journey reaches out into the public domain so that I could establish a communication between myself and a viewer. Now, the history of my own thinking in this way goes way back. And I became conscious of it for the first time when I went to, I was in London at the time. Sorry to make it too personal, but still I went to London at the time, and I went into what they call the Museum of Mankind, because that's the museum that displayed works made by African artists. And I looked at the anonymous artists, and I felt a very strong communication between the things that were being made there and myself. Now, these people the artists who made those things had no imagination of who I could be. I had no imagination of who they were and of how they made those objects or why. But there was something essential that radiated out to me and convicted me, sort of burning bush sort of experience that says, this is really what art is about. It's not about you, but it is something that inhabits the space between us, that transcends space and time and situation and so on. And when you stand in front of the object, that experience, you enter into that space, you share the experience, and you move out of it invigorated, or you move out of it as a changed person. And for me, that became a point of inflection. It's the way I wanted my paintings to be. It should communicate in the same way and must do the things that I experienced at that moment in time. But you know, but to go to the question again, and I'm going about it in a very roundabout way as well. This question about that space as possibility, which is really the theme that that you've used to help me to frame this discussion. When we begin making a painting, there are possibilities that are ahead of us. The possibility that it can fail, but we are all optimists when we start that journey. We feel that this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah. We bring to the experience an overwhelming possibility that this thing can be done. And we begin that journey towards this idea. Now, in the history of Black people, especially on this side of the Atlantic, making art, that space for a long time was very secret. It was underground, if you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Some people like to think about it as being part of a secret space in which practices went on as you would call it, like a secret society. Not a traditional African type secret society, but secret as being hidden away society. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that the space was compressed, it was internal, it was hidden. Mm-hmm. And the movement from the post-emancipation period has been to really unfold, to open up that space, to take it into the real world so that we can move out of that hidden domain and to be human, right? So that it is moving from that impossible, tight, secret to something that is open and free and public. And the only way I could really try and describe it as being human. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm compressing a whole lot of things here together. There's one about the whole process of making, which the whole idea of the space that exists between the artist and the object. And because the artist retreats from the making of the thing and leaves it so that a viewer coming into the space experiences it in a particular way. So that's one. There's also the space in which I inhabit, in which I make the work, in which I am talking about making the work in the same way as a jazz artist would be making music, or a writer just putting words together and then coming up to find out what are some of these ideas that have been emerging through the words that have been expressed. And of course, this whole concept of space and the way in which we move from that impossibility to the rule of possibility. And we are aspiring to move into this domain of possibility at outside. For what it is, that's some of what I wanted to begin the discussion with. Yes. Thank you.
No, and I really like the recognition of the movement of this space in the making from the secret to the visible, a space of impossibility or limitations to a space of humanity.
Yes.
And of course, that really resonates, with this present moment, as protests rage around the world, as people fight for their humanity.
That's right, absolutely.
Right to be. So I really appreciate that. And I loved the connection between your work, the way you see your work, and Awodiya's practice, and the idea of maintaining that recognition of a face, whether the work is figurative or can be easily recognized. For those who perhaps are not familiar with the use of the word figurative in the art world, versus a more abstract work, that the essence is still there, this idea of the face,
Yes.
and your different approaches in working with that.
Yeah.
Of course, having this sort of general conversation about your practice, I want to be able to move a little deeper to some specifics, and so we could see some of the work and talk about the work. So I'd like to invite Awodiya to perhaps speak about a particular piece. I know that you incorporate rich symbolism in your work, which carry cultural meanings, and even the names of your pieces have Black cultural significance. So Awodiya, I would love for you to tell us about one of your recent pieces. Share with our viewers. Tell us about this in the work.
All right. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to be able to share my view of being Black in the world. I really want to say thank you to you all. I really appreciate it, and I do not take this for granted. Thank you. So I've been working on a series of Afro, the Afro series, for a while, for as far back as 2015, 2017 till date. But and within that space of time, the Afro series that I've done, they're actually countable, not because I couldn't have done as much as possible, but because there is beauty in how can I put it, in originality and in having a reason to creating one. Okay, having said that, I I work with the use of rich African textures in the context of symbols, signs, and motifs. Yeah, there's something we call unnoising, ONAIS, unnoising in Nigeria, and that is an African art movement that originated from Ile-Ife. Ile-Ife is a state, and is a town in Osun State, and Ile-Ife is referred to as the origin of the Yorubas. That's like one of the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria: the Yorubas, the Hausas, and the Igbos. But Yoruba is believed to have originated from Ile-Ife. So Ile-Ife is very rich in culture. It's very rich in all this. So I studied in Ile-Ife, so I have the first-hand knowledge of this. So and Ile-Ife is known for passing messages with culture, with symbols, with signs, with motifs. And also we have quite a number of it in adage, in proverbs. So I try to compress all this into symbols. This is not the first time we will be using symbols in Africa or in the world. But I compress my symbols into one specific language that can help me convey my message in the best Black way, so to speak. Okay, let me come back a little bit to the names and the beauty in the names of my African works. Okay, I work with Afro series basically to create awareness of being Black. I could have decided to do some random Black model, or just some random anything that comes my way. But there's a language, there's a communication, there's a message I'm trying to pass across with my Afro series, incorporated in with symbols, signs, and a lot of proverbs. Okay, I will try and break it down. Now, this particular work behind me, I titled it Wura, but the model's name is Precious, which both have their own specific meaning. Wura in Yoruba means, I'm a Yoruba born and bred in Yoruba land. So permit me, but I'll be making interpretation for this basic stuff. So Wura in Yoruba means gold. And we have quite, and why I intentionally title my works after indigenous name is basically because most of us apologetically in most of us in and abroad, we've actually forgotten our roots. I'm being apologetic about that. Not everybody has, but most of us, even some people that are even in this country, I even have something that is eating me up in this particular country. Because we are colonized, does not mean we should let down our guard and then let other people's culture, and we put down our culture, put out our tradition, and put out everything just because we want to be like somebody that that is not even who you are to begin with. So that alone is pissing me off. In an average African home, or let me say Nigerian Yoruba home, you would never hear the parents want their children to actually speak their dialect. It is presently happening in Nigeria. They actually flog their children for speaking in their dialect in their native home. And that really gets on my nerve because I be like, okay, if you are actually flogging a child for speaking his own dialect, and you're telling him he must speak English, he must speak English, that I'm like, okay, in the next future generation, let's say 4 to 5 generations to come, how then do we pass our culture to the next generation? Yoruba has a saying of that goes like this, that the ceremony or the ceremony of an idol or of a god that is hidden from the children, definitely that tradition is going to die because children are actually the future of whatever it is you're doing as at that point. But if you are saying the children should go inside when you are having your idol worship, when you are worshiping your gods, when you are doing your ritual rites and all this, definitely that culture will die. And there's this other thing in Nigeria and in Yoruba to be specific, that they literally want their children to answer to foreign names. You hear names like how can I put it? Like foreign names. Just think about all those foreign names because they feel much respected. They feel like they have this recognition. They feel like they have this prestige. They feel like they have this beautiful thing because it is foreign. They don't really believe in something coming from African and it's original and it's beautiful. So that is why I give my full name. On a normal day, people are shortening their name, and then you could call me Tolu, but there's this beauty in my name that I give, Toluwani. If you don't know how to pronounce it, I will teach you. But that's because I'm African does not mean I should hide my. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? There's this beauty in being African. So I channel this through the naming of my works. Okay, now this title is Bura. It ranges from, the title of my work ranges from, I've done works, and then, like I said, I've done quite a few. And then the names I give them are more like Akoke, Arike, Abeke, like Ashake. All these names are actually beautiful and they are rich in cultural meanings. Like, how do I start to explain this? Okay. Let me start with Ashake. Or no, let me start with Akonke. Akonke simply means how can I put it in English? There's actually literally, there are some words you cannot actually really get. Yeah. But let me just try and just simplify it. Akonke means a child that you actually, how can I put it? You meet and then you care for, like you seriously care for that child. Like you get to meet the child and you selected, and then you pamper the child, you over care for the child. And although that is really like a tip of the iceberg of the real meaning, for a Yoruba person that goes very deep. Really when deep. They start eulogizing with all these names, You won't even know where you spend your car key. And you start looking for a car key when you're going home. So there's actually a lot of richness and a lot of beauty in all these things. So I try to go deep down into my culture, and I bring out essence, the essence of the culture. There is no problem in being black.
You're saying from the name, you
Yeah,
already introduce a depth to the work
yeah, yes, yes,
by attending to language and memory.
yeah, yeah. So
Can you tell us now
I
about
try.
the textures and the beadwork and so on in the piece?
Okay, yeah. Now, like I said, I make use of proverbs and symbols in my works. Okay, now I don't know if I can zoom in, but there's if you can bring this work on the screen, I really appreciate it. Precious. Um, Now, if you zoom in quite well, you'll be able to see quite a number of symbols. There is this house. Let me start with this house. This house right beside the chick, beside the yeah, this art, yeah. That simply is like a prophecy in Yoruba language. That simply is like a prayer that Ashilemole, Akolemole, which means you buy houses, you build houses. It's like you're trying to pray for you that you buy houses, you build more houses, you do well in life and all. And then right to the left, the key, the two keys crossing each other, that's also like a prayer to you that you open, you have keys to open doors. You keep going far, and you have nothing that's going to stop you and the lights right above it. We have this trinity, which means the father, mother, and the child, which means familyhood. There's a lot of saying of familyhood that you can't stay on your own and just neglect your family. Your family is actually your root. And then there's this padlock, right, right a little bit to the right, and then up, yeah, up. This, yeah, that's a padlock, which means um, nothing, nothing locked on you shall actually remain locked. Like these are proverbs. These are symbols gotten out of some proverbs. If I start putting out some proverbs now, you might not be able to understand, but it is just what it is. That there's this prayer, there's this blessing, there's this beauty in African proverb that I try to compress in these rocks. And then the beats, down to the beat. And there are a lot of, if I say I should start mentioning, oh, we might not live here today. And there's this love symbol, which actually symbolizes love, right? Across, like, above the eyelid, the second one, to the top, yeah, up a little. Yeah, the love symbol there. Yeah, that love symbol over there means, everybody generally knows that it means love. And then there's this other one. I don't know if you can find it. The lizard. The meaning of lizard in Yoruba means, yeah, right here, right here. This, yeah, right there. The meaning of lizard in Yoruba means longevity, and because the Yoruba actually believes nobody knows the lifespan of a lizard, because they jump up and down, they believe they have longevity, both lizard and the tortoise. Tortoise is obviously long-lived and all. They live long and all. It is just trying to tell you that you shall live long, you shall prosper, you shall do exploits and the likes. So I wouldn't want to go into a lot of details like that. So let me just go down to the bead, to the African bead, which is particular to the Benin. It is actually particular to Yorubas and the Easterners, especially the Benin. So at the tip of the bead, there's a three-forked, that thing that looks like a fork. It is not a fork. It is what we call oya, ilarum. Ilarum in English means picomb. I don't know. It's not picomb, so to speak. It is like a traditional picomb. They are just three. You just have three of them like that. So when you go to plait your hair, that's what they use in plaiting your hair. And that has a symbolic meaning there too. The meaning of that is that it comes in two ways. They could actually say Oyamayawa, which means Picomb, do not separate me and my loved ones. Like because the job of a pickcomb is to separate the air, is to part the air. So this here is trying to talk about the work of this pickcomb, and it could serve as a pathway, like it could divide friendship, it could divide families and all. So this is more like telling you, or prophesying, or talking about you not going against your family, that these things should not separate you and your family. And it would also be seen in the sense, or in the light, that it is a pathfinder, like it helps you find your path through life. So, and then the general view of the red bead is just culture, the richness in culture of the Benin people, the Yorubas. You can't see an average Yoruba back then without a bead. And it tells a lot about the richness of being African. It's trying to say, no matter how touche you are, you should not forget your own, man. You should try your possible best to always remember and delight. And then the pattern, the white pattern, the white designs on the face and on the arm, they are not mistakes. Those are actually believed. Yeah, the face paintings, the white marks and the like, those are not mistakes. There is this belief in Africa, in Nigeria, this signs, there's something we call the Ori sign. How can I break that down? Okay, the Ori sign is actually the Ori symbol, the Ori patterns. It's Ori in Yoruba means head, your head. So it is, and Yoruba actually take cognizance to the head, because Yoruba will say Ori la fi mu ẹran láwo, which means you pick the best meat, or you pick the meat with your head, and your head in that sentence could mean your creator. So, and then the sign is more like a spiritual significance to Africans. Like we have body paintings, we have the lights and the light. It's actually a spiritual significance to the Blacks and to the Africans, that we are actually deeply rooted, and we are actually also spiritual beings. We believe in spirit, we believe in the supreme being and the lights and the lights. So, but it shouldn't be like a pause to our thought, to our senses and the light. So I try to no matter how much I try to compress being Black into a piece, I still have a lot to say. So these symbols help me pass across my message of the consciousness of being Black, for you to have the consciousness of being Black, that you can be African and be original. You can, there are good things can come out of Africa. You can be anywhere in the world, at the same time feel proud about you being African. I don't know, but I feel a lot of people don't want to attribute to being African. I don't know why, but I'm a proud African, and I try to project this light through my work, that people should see themselves as a proud, the people that are Africans should, because I don't know why Blacks, although Blacks have been painted, there's this way people, especially the Westerners, they view Black, and they be like, we are some like I don't want to offend anybody, but I feel there's a racial discrimination among some of the Westerners, that if we as ourselves, we cannot stand together and be proud of what and who we are, and be proud of our background, of our culture, we might not be able to stand the test of time. Because right here, some people don't want their children speaking their own dialect, and it is really, really bad, because you've been taught something that is not yours. And those guys are really doing well by teaching you their own culture, but you did not want to pass it on. So it is really sad. And the name is actually just to bring out the beauty and the essence of being African. I hope I answered the question.
Oh, you certainly have, Awodiya. Thank you for taking us on that visual journey. As I said, you begin with the naming that really begins to sort of open up that space for Blackness. And then, of course, adding all of these motifs, these symbols, really begin to add rich layers and depth to that space. And of course, for me, listening to you, I can tell that you take these images beyond a representation of the physical to a spiritual dimension as well, to a spiritual plane. And of course, I like the idea that by incorporating these motifs, it is not just a presentation of the Black body, but you are prophesying over that Black body, you are praying over that Black body, and you are wishing that Black body well into the future, wishing it long life, wishing it prosperity, wishing that person that is represented positivity and blessings and so on. So thank you so much for that. And of course, I would like to add Ken to the conversation now. And of course, I know Ken's work also comes with a number of layers to it. And so Ken, I know you've been busy working on new paintings during this time. I'd love for you to share a piece with us in the context of this conversation.
Yeah, and I'd just like to preface it because, listening to Awodiya, he uses the symbol and the traditional symbols as a point of departure upon which he layers these images, which is really very interesting. In his Yoruba culture, a lot of these symbols have retained those meanings so that a Yoruba looking at it is able to read the painting for its symbolic language. And that is really very interesting, very exciting as a way of entering into the painting.
You offer your own entries, your own ways of.
Absolutely. Yes. And it is, I want to show a painting that I am working on and probably coming close to the end of it. But I thought for this discussion, I would really like to use this painting as something that is current that I'm working on. Now, I don't know if you could bring it up and I could speak to it as it's there. No, it's a pretty large painting. It's 8 feet by 15 or 16 feet. So it's larger than me, taller than I am and wider than I am. Now, I'm still, and I have not conceptualized a name that would provide a point of departure for the viewer to enter into the work. But the name is sometimes irrelevant. But what I wanted to do is to talk about my own journey and the ways in which I've tried to explore this creative space that we call my studio, and the way in which this studio relates to the larger expectations of the society and the world that we live in. The world in which they expect a particular view of my own particular view of the world, in which they would think about it as being Black, as being Trinidadian or Caribbean, as the case might be. So this is the outcome of a journey that began some time ago. And it has to do primarily with shape, with color, with surface, and the texture. That's the fundamental basis of all art making across the world, wherever it is that it also has to do with feelings, the ways in which we see it not only through our eyes, but we feel it with our body. Because I think sometimes we think about paintings only as a visual experience. But a painting is far more than that. It is visual. It is also visceral in the sense that it makes a physical impact on the viewer. And I want to engage all of those attributes, all those expectations in the painting. In the realm of feelings, a lot of them are very difficult for me to get at because it is something that I could only express in a very primitive and sometimes guttural way. It's like, you know, where I would grunt or say, that, where it goes back to the primal experience of the world. And I think that is important because it is from there that we develop language. It's from there that we reach out into the world. So in ways of even exploring the whole idea of space and possibility, it starts from this impossible sound and the ways in which these are given meanings. So it starts from the color and the shape and those texture, and by manipulating and working them, by taking them and allowing it to take you on a journey, you give it some meaning. All right. Of course, these meanings would shift, they change from viewer to viewer because they bring your own expectations to everything in the world. But eventually, I want the work to have that kind of personality that would make the world or make the viewer pay attention. So in the same way as Awodiya wants the image to reflect the personality of the sitter. You know, we share the same area of possibility where we want the image to really convict, to ask the world to pay attention. And I like to think about Blackness in the same way as we would think about femininity, masculinity. These are qualities that we bring to the work, so that we paint a female figure and we want it to feel feminine. In the same way, I would want in the manipulation of the work and the painting of it to be able to communicate the idea of my Blackness, that essential quality that that we can't really isolate and say, well, look, this is exactly what it is, but we know it when we see it and we experience it. I don't know if I should go on, but
I have a little time. Is there more you'd like to say about the piece? I'm really interested in this idea of the essential quality. And I mean, you know, when we think about essence, we sometimes think about boiling something down to, you know, something that could be really sort of narrowly defined. But, you know, this essence sort of explodes into a number of possibilities, a number of dimensionalities. So perhaps you can talk about that.
Okay. A lot of that resonates around the idea of, you know, the concerns that you as a viewer bring to it. Sometimes I try to imagine what may be the concerns of a viewer. But most of the times, a painting is really about my solitude. It's about my imagining of what is possible to present in an aesthetic manner. So that there is always this tension between my own solitude, that internal experience, or I would like to say my solitudes, and my own concern about the viewer.
It's funny that you put solitude in the plural, because I was about to say, but there's a plurality here.
That's right, absolutely, yes. Okay, so yeah, so we are in the same wavelength in that sense. Yeah. And you know, how to to break out of that space and to open it so that it can be shared. And so that it can be shared even at that sort of visceral level in which there are no words to communicate what is seen.
Yeah. And so that you know, so that your experience becomes something that is more manifold and more universal, more communal, if you will.
Yes, so that the humanness of my experience and experiences are able to be shared with a viewer.
Yes, yes, and many viewers.
And many viewers at different times.
At different times across space and so on.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. I think this is really an exciting representation, especially in the context of this conversation as we think about Blackness. It's easy for people to, you know, to think about Blackness as this kind of monolith, you know, that is sort of homogeneous, but there is heterogeneity in it, there's diversity in it, there's a richness to it. And this piece really opens us up to see it in all of its possibility, in all of its layers, in all of its, to go back to that word, its plurality.
Because
sorry,
go
ahead.
ahead.
You go ahead.
You know, for some of the experiences, you know, that I tried, because we spoke and I began talking about the issue and concern with feelings. There is the feeling of fear, you know, of anger. Yes. You know, of the, that all of these are become part of the narrative of the work that I want to be able to show. Yes. So that and to put them all together in a seamless manner, so that the viewer can find and discover the meanings in it. Yeah. So there's hope as well. There are these concerns that you know, especially as we are in this period of isolation, and this perception that the world is darkening around us. But you know, this is the world as it has always been like that, and it is part of the journey that we are engaging with now. Yes. In which, yes, there is darkness, but there is also the promise of tomorrow, that that we are part of a historical a trajectory through space and time. You know, that we are opening up into spaces in which our humanity becomes more available than it is right now. Yes.
Yes, no, absolutely. And again, it really dovetails with this moment, you know, in which we're experiencing a complexity of emotions, and that they're all in tension. You know, you have pain, you have, you know, a legacy of trauma, there is anger, there's frustration, you know, as we face injustice, social injustice and so on around the world, but there is also, you know, this feeling of hope, again, the feeling of possibility, the optimism that we hold on to, that, you know, things can change.
Absolutely. And things are changing.
Are changing.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Ken. It's such a delight to put your works side by side, and to look at your approaches and to see the synergies, to see the similarities, but of course to really celebrate the different perspectives, the different angles, or, you know, the way that you approach the work. I would love for us to move into our Q&A segment. Let me just see if there are questions. There is a question here. How do you navigate the social stratification of the art world, where surely it is more difficult for Black artists and Black art to ultimately gain appreciation, but simply even be considered fine art, as intellectual, as beautiful, etc. Perhaps each of you could take it in turn. So again, the question is, how do you navigate the social stratification of the art world, where surely it is more difficult for Black artists and Black art to ultimately gain appreciation, but simply even be, or simply be considered fine art, or as intellectual, or as beautiful? So perhaps you can share your own experiences of navigating the art world and its social stratification.
I don't know if Awodiya, I don't know if he wants to go first. I will, because I was speaking.
Oh.
I don't want to seem to be dominating the discussion.
Well, we can,
Okay.
we
Okay. I think I can. How do we navigate the art world, regardless of the social stratification and the fact that the world does not recognize African arts or African artists, so to speak? I think I got the question right, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How art is appreciated, or how Black art, may not be considered fine art or intellectual, or yeah.
Okay. Where should I start from? Okay, let me start from that particular aspect where the person said African art is not regarded as fine art. Well, first and foremost, the person referred to it as art, and the world still refers to it as art. So definitely it is art. Okay. Now, history can actually justify this in the sense that history believes, and it is recorded that Pablo Picasso, who was actually influenced by African art into painting Cubism, into painting more of his abstract or his abstracted figures. It is believed that he came to Africa, he visited Africa in the I think way back, and then during the slavery period, the slavery era, and then he saw African art, the statues, that they are not actually keen on representing something of top-notch resemblance, but at the same time, it passes a very strong message. Like it is like I read in school, arts, and like it should be. Art really is not about beauty, the beauty to the eyes. It is more of something communicating to you. As long as you feel something when you see a piece of art, the art has achieved its purpose. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
So and so to speak, there is no bad art. Like we all say, there is no bad art. So let me now come back to now the idea of African arts. I try to admonish that. I try to address that by saying that even one of the greatest painter, Pablo Picasso, was influenced by African art, which means there is strength and there is power in African art. What you do with that strength, it all depends on you. Now, let me speak for myself, and let me deal with some people's experiences as I've been able to be on a one-on-one talk with them, African artists. Okay, there is this particular artist in Nigeria. He studied in my school, and he went out to further his education to be an apprentice under John Lopez in South Dakota in the year 2014, 2015. He's a sculptor, and back then he was not reckoned rich. He was just a basic, typical African artist, just like myself. He was married though, but it wasn't so easy. People didn't really want to recognize, so to speak, with him because his art was not recognized. But he did some basic things consistently that made people recognize his art, not African art. African art is African art. In fact, a lot of people want to recognize African art. A lot of people want to paint like African, but we get it wrong. We want to paint like them. when they want to paint like us. So we want to create like them. When they want to create, we should actually go back to our source. Like I've been back to my source, like interpreting African art in my own way. And like Mr. Ken right there is interpreting African art in his own way. The thing I think we all need to get back there to a place of solitude, to a place of calmness, and to a place of serenity where you can come back and then think about your work, think about yourself, think about what you want to represent. I think people will reference more with you if you have a thing, or if you have something you were talking on, or something you're talking about, not just painting for painting's sake. Although there's this aspect of painting for painting's sake that you just want to enjoy it. There are times I've started a painting without knowing where it's going. I just want to pour it out. There's an aspect to that, but there should be a track record for your work. There should be something that will strike a chord with people when they mention your name. It's either they say, oh, this person is color. It's either they say, oh, this person is expression. It's either they say, this person is Afro. It's either they say, this person, do you get what I'm saying? People should be able to recognize with your work. That's a place. I'm trying to mention the principles. You should have so to speak, a signature in art that people will easily, without seeing your practical signature, seeing your work alone, people should be able to say, no, this guy. That is one. You need to be able to stay and stand with something and push through, regardless of whatever is being thrown at you. That is one. That is being dogged. You need to be rugged. You need to be dogged regardless. Over time, when you keep practicing that, practice makes perfect. When you keep practicing that, and then over time, people will gratify towards it. It is just a law of nature. When you keep doing what you do and you get better at it, over time, people will gratify towards it. And that has been this artist that I was talking about, Dr. Popola. He has been an artist for the past God knows how long, but he kept at it. I'm going to refer to Yoruba proverb again. I'm sorry. Yoruba proverb says, alágbẹ̀dẹ tó ń lu irin ní ojú kan, nǹkan kan ló fẹ́ mú jáde ńbẹ̀. Now, let me interpret. It says a blacksmith that keeps hammering on a particular spot, keeps repeating the same hammer, the same reading. He's trying to bring out something there. And if it continues like that, he's going to finally get to bring out something there that you yourself will be amazed that this guy was doing rubbish just yesterday, but look at what he has done with it. So you need to be extremely focused. Focus blinds people. Focus will blind you to some other things. You don't need to compare yourself. You don't need to want to run at some other people's race. Keep at your pace. Consistency, doggedness, and theme, or how can I put it, a signature in art would actually get your art into places. I've not been out of this country. I've been in Nigeria, but my works have been to places. I was never painting to satisfy anybody, so to speak. I was painting to pass a message. I was painting to set a biting force free in me, because I'm just trying to do what I love to do, or without really giving a consideration if you like it or you don't like it. Okay. This man said something. I think it was is it Pablo Picasso or Basquiat? He said, while I make a painting, and then you people are still busy criticizing my painting. He said, go and make another one. Before they finish criticizing, he made another one. So you don't have any problem with what they say. Keep creating.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Yes, I know, and you've really put a sharp spotlight on, the idea that influence in the art world is not a one-way street, and that the Western world has been influenced by African art and art from, the global South and so on. And of course, you are highlighting the need for focus and discipline and staying true to what you want to do within an art world that may demand other things of us. So thank you so much for that. Ken, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I just want to deal with this whole question of social stratification, which I think underlies and give structure to what we call this art world.
Mm-hmm.
And the Western Art Academy, which has for a long time viewed art, especially art that comes out of the Caribbean, out of Trinidad, very reductively.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is seen as exotica,
Yes.
or as a hybrid of forms that have been appropriated from somewhere else, whether it came from Africa or from Europe or even from the pre-Columbian world. To my mind, this has been a way of exerting control over the prevalent cultural and artistic practices that have characterized artistic practice in the Caribbean and in Trinidad as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because of that, ways in which they've structured our art world, what we create is underappreciated and not clearly understood, even by ourselves, as the reflection of our personal and social needs, which goes back to the original meanings that answers the question, why do we really make these things that we call paintings?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to those essential concerns and essential values. And it's because of this structure, this control that the Western Art Academy has established. Our art is absent in the discourse of art scholarship, out of international collections, critical discourse that we have among ourselves is seen and understood just as murmurings, not even as the clear articulation of ideas.
Yeah.
You know, our art, the art that Picasso and the Europeans dealt with, they were challenging their academy. The art that we make challenge our own colonial distress.
Mm-hmm.
They challenge our own preoccupations with cultural repression that has been for 400 years hammering on our humanity. Our art deals with our own conception of what is modern, which is very different to the ways in which Picasso and the Europeans dealt with their conception of modernity. And these concerns, once we understand this as the fundamental reality, it would transform this whole stratification that exists in this historical discourse. Because I remember when I used to teach art history at one time, and that was part of the first lecture I did. It would take we were required to use the Jansen History of Art text, and we'd look through the book and see that the Caribbean did not exist in it.
Yeah.
That contemporary Africa didn't exist in it.
Mm-hmm.
Tribal Africa was dealt with, but only in the sense that some of these images were appropriated by European artists because it found some kind of fascination in them, and took these images and incorporated it into their work. Very often to make very grotesque statements. You know, you think about the discourse with Picasso, for example, is Damoiselles d'Avion, the African mask that he was using there, but to make the prostitutes look very grotesque. And you know, these, you know, it appropriated it and redefined the reality, the underlying reality in which these things were made. And these are the essential features of the historical discourse and the social stratification that we have to negotiate. And it comes back to this word negotiation, which I think is a useful word that was used at the beginning here in framing the question, that, you know, do we really want to negotiate with it, or should we really, is it time for us to put our knee on the neck of it, you know, so that it doesn't breathe on us anymore? Okay, so.
Follow-up comment, I believe from the same viewer, who says then we should fashion our own standards without asking for external validation.
Hurry. So we are on the same page indeed, absolutely.
We're almost out of time, but there is another remark, and this comes from Trevor Allen, who says, hearing Ken speak about trying to convey meaning to viewers, I thought the artists paint for themselves and we, the viewers, interpret it within our own meanings.
Okay, I could, if I join in first before, without, there is, as an artist, for me, I could speak personally for myself and for some of the people that I know, there is a line that we negotiate all the time. We walk that line in which you don't make paintings unless you really want to. You know, you have to, there's a need that you have to fulfill. Yeah. All right. Sometimes that need is commercial. Sometimes it is spiritual. Sometimes it is professional. However we define it, you have to walk that line. Once you take upon yourself that need, I know one of my friends calls it a cross. Once you take the cross upon your shoulder, you've got to make the journey to Golgotha.
Right.
You know? And Golgotha is the point where you put the thing up and you wait to be crucified.
Right.
Or to be taken down from the cross, as the case might be. I'm using it as a sort of amusing metaphor, but yes. I think we could understand the journey that we make with the thing, and the responsibility that we have to self or to the community that we are painting for. Because at one level, you know, the question is, what are you doing this thing for?
Yeah.
Why are you investing all of this time and material and space to make these things?
Yeah.
And once you answer that question, it determines the nature of the outcome.
Well, I think this is a lovely place for us to stop. And in fact, I'd like to close off by answering that question by using some quotations from both of you. And so addressing this idea of, you know, what are you doing this thing for? What are you making art for? What is this thing all about? And I recall Awodiya very early in our conversation saying that, you know, for him, you know, his art is the essence of revitalization and communication. And I think that is key when we think about art in relation to Blackness, this idea of revitalizing self and this need for communication. And of course, with you, Ken, offered something so poignant. You said art is something that inhabits this space between us, this beautiful idea of community and connection, particularly at this time when many of us are isolated from each other and we are required to exercise social distancing and so on. Okay. So I want to thank you both. It has been my pleasure to spend this time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too for encapsulating
pleasure is mine.
Some of these thoughts. So
thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Well. Thank you very much. And nice meeting you, Awodiya. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you too, Mr. Ken.
Yes, we must, and I will talk to Sean and we'll exchange.
Yes. Let me turn the session over to Sean, who will close us off. And of course, thank you to our viewers for joining us. You have been lovely and we appreciate your tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone on today's conversation, Mr. Crichlow, Awodiya, and Dr. Marsha Pearce. Thank you all. And thank you to all who joined us tonight. Tell a friend, tell a colleague, or a family member about the festival. 20 conversations and 20 cultural activities all throughout the month of November. Coming up this week, we have tomorrow Kaiso, Soca, Calypso, Beats and Rhythms Explained by Martin, Mice Raymond, and Robin Foster. On Friday, another exciting conversation entitled The Body Remembers, the Poetry of Movement in African Resistance with Jamie Filbert of Bois Academy, Kwan David of Volta Miuda Capoeira, and moderated by Abeo Jackson. And on Saturday, we have a full chuck of things, cultural things, African movement workshop out of Nigeria, a traditional Nigerian food demonstration, and DJs in the dance with conscious reggae and dancehall. On Sunday, to wrap up the week, we have a conversation entitled Love is Love, Pride, Diversity, and Inclusion of the LGBTQIA Community with Reverend Jide Macaulay of the UK, Amir Hall, and Dr. John Paul, moderated by Zoe Sazal here in Trinidad. So we hope that you all can tune in. All of these events will be at 7 p.m. Trinidad and Tobago time, and you can find all info and links for registration for our events on our website at www.theblackconsciousnessfestival.com. Don't forget to submit the names of your ancestors you'd like to enter on our website's ancestral memorial. Thank you for joining and have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.